Welcome to SOIT Radio show. This is the latest presentation for SOIT Radio, and this is the elite group of students for School of Information Technology. And with me, we have our guest today, Mr. Michael Quiroz, and I'm sure that he's going to tell us what is the latest in game design. We like to play games, but how to design those games that people play, that's where the money is. I'm sure Mr. Quiroz will tell us about that. And thank you very much, Ms. Williamson. Ms. Williamson, is grooming, this elite group of students at the School of Information Technology. And all to you and to Ms. Williamson.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank
you. Well, hello. How are you all doing? I'm going to try and figure out a good spot to stand here so that I'm not blocking. Well, I have my monitor right in the middle, so we'll just have to deal with that. But first off, I like to know a little bit more about you guys before I get going here. So, who here wants to be a game developer? By raising hands here. So at least one, two. You guys already know you want to be a game developer? Cool. Okay, by the end of today, my goal is to have 100%. All you guys want to change over to being game developers. You ready to do this? I'm going to try and convince you. Now, actually, I'm not here to do that. But what I do want you to understand is that it is a great career. A lot of fun, very challenging, and most importantly, if you have never thought of it, I want you to at least think about some of the things that might go in there. And the reason I say that is I never did when I was your age, when I was in high school. It was a bit newer at that time, so there weren't programs for it. We weren't programming in high school. We weren't doing anything like that. And I played a lot of games. Believe me, growing up, played a ton of games on much older consoles, but I never once connected and thought, there's somebody out there somewhere that's making these every day for a living, and this might be a really cool use of my skills, and very fun. So what I'm going to do today first is take you guys through a bit of my career and how I got into games, and a lot of the games that I've worked on, and show you some behind the scenes of some of those, at least some images, and then I will field questions, and then after that I'd like to take you through some hands-on exercises, showing you some of how we would start to put some pieces together. Okay, so before I begin, any questions? Anything right off the bat? Okay, cool. So let me start showing you. I'm gonna drive. Well, let's see. I can actually drive from both places. So this shot first was from. This is from Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. So I worked at. I'll get to that in a couple minutes. But I was out in California. I worked at LucasArts. But let me get started from the beginning here. So like I said, in high school, never really thought about games, and it really wasn't an available topic for me to study. But I loved to draw, and I was drawing all the time, and I loved putting things together. I loved doing robotics and doing electronics as a kid. So I started, when it came time for college and starting to figure out what I wanted to do, there really weren't a lot of options for me to visualize what something would finally look like. So I went to Georgia Tech. I decided to go to Georgia Tech and they have a 4 and 2 year program down there for architecture, and I got my degree and started to work. I got out and actually started to work for architecture firms and started working on things like these. So are any of you guys into architecture, mechanical drawing, or anything like that? Anybody here? One? Okay, cool. So you've probably seen something like this, and these are AutoCAD drawings. So these are more, this is if we're going to actually design and put together and ultimately build a building, you need to have all these detailed drawings. Well, it was cool, but I started to realize after a while that what I actually really liked was the visualization part, not necessarily just doing all the nitty-gritty in every plan. And this is for every one of you too. As you start to work on things, you may have already come to this conclusion, especially some of you guys that have already chosen video game development as a career. You're going to find some things that you like and don't like, and it's okay to be, I just don't like that. Now, if you decide that after the first day, probably not a great day, right? You got to give things a chance, really try it, and start to do something. I'm always encouraging all the students that I meet, try it a little bit. You got to get over that initial hump. It's going to be a little bit frustrating. After that, at least in my opinion, if you've given it that try for whatever it is, a couple months or something like that, you are absolutely welcome to say, that's something I don't like to do. And you move on to something else, right? And that's a big part of what I always talk about is I didn't set out to start a career in games, but I got out, started working in architecture, and was ready to design some really cool buildings. I like the visualization aspect. I wanted to do some of these great buildings that you see around the world. And guess what my first project was? Ready? That. Anybody tell what that actually is? Anybody know? This awesome visualization project. Can you tell? So there's two things actually. One is a truck washing facility. Yeah, I got to work on a truck washing facility as one of my first projects. And the one on the left is actually a cell phone tower. So these are the cell phone repeaters that allow you to use your cell phones anywhere. And they actually require architectural drawings to say, okay, here's your building, and on top you are going to put these big antenna, and this is what it's going to look like, and it required all that. Same thing for a truck washing facility. We needed to still design the housing around it and how all the engineering would fit in there. So at the time, I remember thinking like, wow, okay, this is not exactly what I signed up for doing something like this. However, and I'll come back to it later, is anybody a Star Wars fan here? Any Star Wars fans at all? Couple? Okay, cool, that's good. I'll work with that. So I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but you guys might not recognize it, but later on, things like these engineering projects actually became really useful as I started working on Star Wars, because a lot of the architecture and aesthetics for futuristic type objects are very similar. It's a more engineering project. Okay, so you guys know the town of New Brunswick. These were some of the new Civic Square, and then there's a county administration building that's, can't see it on there, that one down the street a little bit. And for these, I started doing 3D models. So I was more involved with creating the very first views that anybody could see of the building. And I realized at that point that even though I was a relative youngster in the industry, just out of school, I realized that it became very important for our senior partners to see what I was creating. And I want you to think about it too. As you're heading out eventually into whatever career you choose, seek out those opportunities, right? Because that's what you want. You want to find out how you can become indispensable to that company right away. And nobody was doing anything like that. Nobody was doing any 3D or pre-visualization. So it wasn't just that the senior partners wanted it, our clients. So imagine you're about to spend whatever, 50 million on a new building, right? Do you want to see a 3D rendering or not? Of course you would. You're going to spend that extra money to try and do that so you can see what you're going to get, right? So remember, try and seek out those opportunities. So a couple more shots of some of these buildings, and this is also the Children's Hospital in New
Just to
Brunswick.
connect, when he says 3D models, your your origami cube that you're doing a program design for is a 3D model, so that he could present it to the people that he's working for to see what the plan is for him to do. So the plan and design is what he's been talking about. What you're working on now is a very, very, very scaled down version of designing something, creating that 3D model, looking at it, and now you're in the process of redesigning the algorithm so it's easier for other people to use. That's what he's talking about, 3D design and creating a planning document. He hasn't even started the digital aspect of it yet. What you've seen were sketches and then the outcome of the deliverable. Your vocabulary words are all in his conversation. So that's why you're here, to connect what we're doing to what he's actually doing for a living. Thank you.
Thank you. And actually, yeah, feel free to interject. If I'm using anything that you guys are like, okay, what was that? You know, sometimes that's part of it, is if you're living this as I do for 8 hours, 12 hours a day, right? You start to just assume that everybody else is going to know something. Feel free to stop me at any time too. But it's great to hear that you guys are all working on a project that shares some similarities. So right around after I finished that project, the other thing was, and this is not it's not an architecture talk, but it comes up. I realized with architecture, as much as I like designing those spaces, the project length and what I was physically doing after finishing those initial renderings was, again, just something that I realized, you know, I like doing that 3D part, meaning the three-dimensional part, starting to design the spaces. Maybe there's something where I could use that a little bit more and not necessarily doing just the 2D drawings all the time. So I started taking courses at NYU. This is back in 97, 98. And they had a new program. It was one of those courses where I would go in once a week, take the train in, and then go and be around people for the first time that were all interested in the same thing as me. And I always show this because it was kind of a turning point for me. It's funny. So this image, as simple as it is, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this commercial. Have you seen it? The scrubbing bubbles that go around the bathtub and everything. Well, so we look at stuff like this on TV all day, right? Or any day. But when I saw, my teacher at the time, his name was Jim Bresnahan, and he would never remember me from anybody, but I remember around the bathtub to start to actually create all the little bubbles and everything, and I was hooked. I just realized, wow, this is cool. It's something that just clicks to me too. I love to do the visualization aspect. Maybe there's something in advertising or marketing. So, but at the same time, I was seeing behind the scenes of how movies like Alien was made, and actually one of my other instructors worked at MTV at the time doing all digital graphics. So it opened up my eyes, you know, and hopefully that'll open up some of your eyes as well. Things like these when you start to see them. So I did what any sane person would do, I think, at this point. And I was living here in New Jersey and going to school, and then decided, you know what, it's time to quit architecture, pack up everything into my car. Of course, that's not me, but pack up my whole house, pack up everything, and move to California. So, and I did. I had actually just gotten married at the time. Had just gotten married, so my wife and I decided that, you know what, let's try and change the pace, let's try and move. And that's another thing too. And again, I'm not saying do this every day. Don't be changing every day, changing your mind. I'm giving you a synopsis over a couple of years. But don't be afraid to, don't let yourself get trapped down something that you're like, okay, it's just not for me, and I'm doing it every day. So again, my first adage, you gotta try it. You gotta try it more. But decide, sometimes you're gonna find some pathways that you don't like. So I decided I'm going to move to California, and I'm going to go work for, at the time, it was DreamWorks and PDI and all these big firms out there, big companies. So I got my demo reel together and did everything, and this happened. Pixar too. How could I forget Pixar? So I mean, my plan had worked out beautifully to this point. It was like, cool, I'll just get my demo reel done and send it in, you know, and then I'll start working at Pixar, and that's easy. It just should be fine, right? I mean, I did everything that I needed to do so far. Went to school, learned those programs, learned what I needed. And then when it happens, you have to start to rethink everything. And it's, I mean, I'm not going to lie, it's a pretty bad time in anybody's life. And you're starting to go, okay, well, wait a second, this is what I wanted to do. And now that's not working, right? And not only that, it's more of like you just get a little card back saying rejected, sorry, move on. Actually, in the newspaper, believe it or not. It's like, who does that anymore? I happened to see an ad in the newspaper for a place that was looking for somebody that wanted to join, or they were looking for somebody to work on video games. So I sent in my work, and lo and behold, a month or so later, here I was working on a video game project. And the reason more, and this is for a place called Accolade, which was bought by Infogrames, which was then bought by Atari. So I guess technically I worked for Atari, but not for that long. But the thing was, they needed somebody. The reason why I got hired into games was not because I knew everything about games. It was because I had architecture background, and they wanted somebody that knew how to build worlds in their games. And because I knew a specific piece of software called Softimage that I had learned at NYU. So there's not as much of a lesson in that, other than sometimes it's knowing a few different things. Sometimes it's the right place at the right time, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes there's a little bit of that. It's starting to network and know people that are in some of these industries. So that's another key thing. I mean, even today, I'm happy to share contact information with any of you guys, any of you. You know, even if you don't want to go into games development, help to give you ideas. Okay, cool. We can start to make, I thought they were doing 2D games at the time. So to show you, even though I had played, I had not really stayed up on how games were made. And I walked in there and they had, you know, trucks driving through forest and all that kind of stuff. And again, was just hooked. And sometimes you just know, like, this is a cool pathway for me. So I started working on this project and had a blast. And at the end, I was like, okay, yeah, I think I can stay in games. I think I like this, you know. It's basically, and this doesn't happen, it's not happened again, so I don't want to say that this is always going to happen, but it is good to understand that it's a big business too. Games are huge business. I mean, if anybody's looked at numbers like this, today, I don't know the exact numbers, but something like Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto, when they first come out, some of those games have actually sold close to $1 billion in the first day or so. It's crazy. It's crazy. When you start to like really put those numbers out. I mean, we all know the games and we know a lot of people that play them, but I want you to realize too, it's not It is a huge business. So that's a good side and the bad side. Sometimes there are pressures from the business side to get things done.
Mr. Quiroz, a quick question.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's not, but we play games for, we buy it for $50, $60 and we think this is great. Can you give us an idea how long, for example, Grand Theft Auto
Right.
or something like that, how long does it take to, and for the
Actually
whole
make it.
team,
Right.
to actually build that kind of a game? How long does it take?
Yeah, it's a great question. And of course, different for all the games. But the one I can speak to best, and I'll show in a couple minutes, is the Force Unleashed, the Star Wars game that I was on. We got upwards of, to one point, about 200 people. But the game, from start to finish, was close to 4 years.
Oh, wow.
So think about that. You guys started as freshmen. We're starting to work on that game every day. You guys get summers off, and then we're still working, right? All summer too. And then your sophomore, we're still going, starting to crank games, right? Junior, we're still going, and then finally, as you guys are getting ready to graduate, we're getting ready to get that game out there. And it sounds cool, and it is. The one other thing, though, has anybody ever seen the movie Groundhog Day? Anybody here? Nobody? Okay, I recommend you watch it, first of all. But it's basically about this story about the day repeats again and again and again for the main person in the story. And as cool as it is to make games every day, imagine if you had to play the same level for like 6 months in a row sometimes as you're working on it, right? Sometimes that's the work part, and we say it's a very fun, rewarding career, but there are days where it's a lot harder. You're trying to fix bugs, you're trying to change things or make it better. You're taking feedback from players. We'll do focus testing all the time. And by focus testing, does anybody know focus testing? Do you guys know what this means at all? Okay. It's another good thing. And if you ever get a chance to do one, you should join one. So focus testing is, we're getting to a point on the game where we can start to have it be played, put in the hands of players, just like you guys, right?
Beta testing.
Sorry, what's that?
Isn't that beta testing? Or something?
Well, beta testing, yeah, we will actually try and do it earlier. Beta testing is the final round. You're right, though. That's where we're really ready to go out the door. But what we want actually is feedback as early as possible, because that gives us more time to change it. And I always think if you watch like forums and somebody is like, the game's about to come out in 2 weeks, they're going to change all this stuff in 2 weeks. It's not going to happen. That 2 weeks to try, take a massive team of 200 people and try and change stuff, that's not going to happen. But 6 months before, we can make some big changes. So what we'll do is we'll get everybody into, we'll actually, I mean, there's now basically focus testing groups that go out. They find whatever age demographic we're looking for. So that might sometimes be the 18 to 25 range, sometimes it's kids, sometimes it's adults, right? They will go round up a certain amount, whatever we need, both sexes, different ages, things like that. We'll bring them in, and behind those two-way mirrors, the players will be playing, and we're all watching and taking notes and seeing what they're doing. And it's really valuable to see, because you may think you're designing something really well until you have somebody else who's never seen it at all play it, and they're
Hello, welcome to Cast TV and Radio Show. My name is Nasia Williams, and we are with Mr. Crawford. My first question is, what is your title? What is that you do?
Currently, my title is Discipline Coordinator, which was formerly a title Teacher Assistant to the Principal, but it's more of a Discipline Coordinator. And one of the things I do here at Eastside High School is I make sure that students are in compliance with all of the rules and regulations of the school. I work directly with School of Technology, Principal Gaines, and I'm supervised by Mr. Zatidi Moody, who's the Principal of Operations.
Okay. Our second question is, prior to joining Eastside High School, you worked in business. Can you explain to the audience what you did?
I worked in a couple of businesses. I worked in a business franchise. I'm not going to go into that, but the main aspect of business that I'm most proud of is the business that I have owning properties, buying and developing properties in Passaic and Essex County. So basically, my pride in my business is not so much with the franchise I formerly worked with, but more or less with the properties that I was able to purchase and develop and provide a quality living space for people who are otherwise probably wouldn't have the same type of living conditions that I provided for them.
Okay. What skills and schooling do you have for students who want to get into the world of business?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
Do you have any skills or schooling for a student who wants to get into business?
I think that hard work, dedication, and just being true and honest to yourself is going to take, especially for younger students or young students, it's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a plan and being committed and being able to follow through with your plan. Set goals for yourself. Set short-term goals, set long-term goals, and make sure that you do an assessment of how well you're doing at meeting those goals. But it's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of effort on your part. And most importantly, don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't. You can do anything you want to do if you put your mind to it and you work very hard at it and you believe in yourself.
Okay, our last question. Overall, do you have any advice that you want to give to a student about education, business, or career goals?
As far as education is concerned, I think education is very, very, very important, and I think the students should find people in their lives as mentors, people in the educational setting who are doing some of the things or who have done some of the things that they wish to do. I think students don't look for people enough to guide them and to direct them down that path. In addition to your parents, you need other people in your life that's going to help you and direct you down that path. If you just reach out to people, don't be afraid to reach out to people who would offer you the type of help and assistance that you may need. As far as career goes, again, set goals for yourself. Find people who are doing the things that you inspire to do, and act as allow them to be mentors to you. Ask them if they would be a mentor, if they would help you along that path and along that way. Whatever you inspire to be, find somebody who's doing what you would like to do and they're doing it successfully, and ask them to mentor you and ask if you can work with them. And I think that's a good start.
And that's all. Thank you for watching Cats TV and radio show, and stay tuned. We'll see you next time.